You're watching Cable 2.
Welcome to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education COVID-19 Special Subcommittee meeting. Today is September 17th. This meeting is being held virtually to allow as many individuals in our community, parents and students and employees to have access to our meeting. I'm Angela Harrison, Superintendent. This committee is chaired by Board Member Marilyn Parker, and I will turn it over now to Chair Parker.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. We want to welcome everyone to this important meeting today. We have a full agenda, and I know we've got lots of folks who are really interested in this item, as we all are. So, Dr. Harrison, at this time, I will ask you to do the roll call to establish a quorum, please.
Yes, ma'am. Chair Marilyn Parker.
Present.
Board Member Andrea Bramer.
Present.
Board Member Dana Jones.
Present.
Board Member Deanna Kaplan.
Present.
Board Member Elizabeth Motsinger. She is present as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
she is present as well. Thank you.
She is driving, I think, and she's trying to be a conscientious driver. So
yes. Everybody.
She will be to her. She'll be to her destination in a few minutes, and then she can fully engage. So, but she's listening.
Everybody's here.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Harrison. And we do have a quorum, and I know that we have some other board members who are on the meeting as well and watching. So, thank you for that. Our first discussion item for today is student engagement. And I think Andy Kraft, Program Officer from Accountability Services, will be presenting that.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to be with all of you tonight. I'm going to share my screen here and take a look with you at the student activity that we've measured in our district thus far. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yes, we can see it. It's great. Thank you.
Good. So when we look at student engagement, what I want to do is begin with talking about the large efforts that have been put towards getting students engaged. And then that'll help you understand why we're getting the positive results we are in terms of the students that are actually engaged. And we recognize there are some students who continue to be disengaged. And so I want to talk to you about the efforts that we're going to take to get 100% engagement in the district. So let's start here. Lauren Richards is on the phone, so if you have specific questions, she's happy to address those. But these numbers represent a tremendous effort that's been put forth by the staff. You can see that meals have been delivered to students and families in 3 different ways. One, you'll see our buses that go out to neighborhoods. They'll stop at some traditional bus stops, apartments, and other locations. And for those neighborhood deliveries, she reports 76,000 breakfast and lunch have been served year to date. You'll see that that's roughly 4,000 students on a daily average that are receiving breakfast and lunch at these neighborhood sites. That's fantastic. We also have community sites where students are served. They're served meals, and they're also given support with their homework and other things. And in those community sites, we see almost 24,000 meals that have been served. and in those community sites, it's about 1,200 meals that are served on a daily basis. You can see that the community depends on the school system this way, and we're happy to be able to meet needs there. And then some students come to our campus. In fact, that's where we see our largest number of meals being served. And you'll see that over 100,000 meals have been served on our school campuses year to date. And it's almost 5,000 students that come to those campuses on a daily basis. So we are feeding kids. And why do we start with that when we talk about student engagement? Is because that's a foundational piece for our students. A second thing that we're doing to help get our students engaged is we're providing computers. And so you see the numbers that Kevin's on the line here too, if you have questions for him. You can see the efforts that Kevin and his team have taken, 39,000 Chromebooks that have been distributed, almost 5,000 iPads. So that covers 44,000 pieces of technology that have been distributed. You know that we have a little over 50,000 kids. Kevin's team has been working incredibly hard to get this done. They deserve a lot of credit. We've also distributed hotspots. Almost 6,000 hotspots are available. And you see that number 550. What that really represents is the fact that Kevin is still distributing some hotspots. They're identifying students who are in need and they have some capacity left to continue to meet needs. In addition to hotspots, we are providing internet connectivity via our buses. Buses will go out into the community. You see there's currently 12 buses that have Wi-Fi hotspots on them. They'll go out to spaces in our community and provide internet access through the Wi-Fi that's on those buses. Now, the platform that we've expected students and teachers to use is Canvas. Canvas is our learning management system. And so you can see what we've done here. We've fed students, we've given them computers, hotspots, and provided Wi-Fi. And now it took a lot of training to get this whole system up and going. And you see the number here, 5,716 staff members have been trained in how to use Canvas. So then this is really the question that we set out to answer. So with all of those supports that are in place, what does our Canvas activity look like? Because Canvas activity is how we're really defining student activity today. The expectation is that every student would be in Canvas every day. And so we measure this on a weekly basis. And what you see here is really a 2-week look at student activity in Canvas from August 31st to September 11th. And we saw 50,000 students had activity within Canvas during that time. Prior to that, we were still getting Canvas up and going. There was a different expectation at some elementary schools, but starting on August 31st, the expectation was that every student would be in Canvas. So you see that we have 50,000 out of our 52,000 students active in Canvas. That's a good number. Now you see at the bottom here that activity in Canvas is not equally distributed across all subgroups. If you take a look at our racial subgroups, you see that we're seeing less Canvas activity for our Hispanic subgroup and for our African American subgroup, while we're seeing higher levels of Canvas activity for our white students. You also see a difference in terms of gender. And I want to highlight this, and we might want to ask ourselves, why do we see a difference between our male students and our female students in terms of their Canvas activity? You might remember in previous years when I brought you end of grade results, and we see a trend where our female students are outperforming our male students. And we might want to think about our instruction, how we're going to engage our male students. And then finally, if you'll see on the bottom right, that activity in Canvas is different across grade spans. It's interesting here that we're reporting that lower Canvas activity at the elementary grades, while we have higher activity at the middle and high school grade spans. We might be less surprised by that, and the reason would be, particularly at the beginning in elementary, there were a lot of packets that were being used, maybe in K2 classrooms. And so we think that's our explanation for that, and I anticipate that number changing in time as the expectation is everyone is using Canvas. So that might help explain the number we see in elementary. All right, so it's helpful then that we compare attendance to activity. We defined high absenteeism as a student that was missing 17%. So in other words, they didn't attend more than 17% of the days, right? Or they were only present for 17% or less. And those students really that didn't meet that criteria or didn't have high absenteeism, 51,000 students do not meet that high absenteeism criteria. That's good. That's 51,000 out of our 52,000 students, okay? So a lot of our students have been present. It'll be interesting to see as time goes on, and we're going to track this over a weekly basis as well as a year-to-date basis. And we'll see how our students are doing in terms of absenteeism. In the bottom left, you'll see the breakdown by race, and you see similar trends across our subgroups, that our Hispanic students have slightly higher rates of absenteeism than our African American and our white students do. You also see that our male students have lower absenteeism or worse absenteeism, maybe that's the way to describe it, than our female students do. And this is something interesting to pay attention to in the bottom right grade level. You really see this switch when we measure Canvas activity. We see a different outcome than when we measure absenteeism. Again, our initial explanation for that is that students may have been starting in elementary school using packets while they were not using Canvas, and that might explain why this is different. Students were present and doing work, but maybe we weren't able to capture their work in Canvas during the time that was measured. We'll be able to test that theory as the school days go on. All right, so we answered the question, what supports did we put in place to get our kids active? And then we looked at the results, how active are our students? And the truth is our activity level is high, and we're excited about that. And then we have to answer one final question, and that is, so what are we doing to continue to increase our activity, to support kids, all kids, but particularly target those students that we're seeing are not active or having high absenteeism? This is a quick image here, and I think it does a great job, maybe better than the numbers do, of painting a picture of some of the efforts that are taking place in our community. You see in the top right one of our buses that goes out to the community delivering meals, providing Wi-Fi hotspots on that bus. And it's great to see that you see a partnership between our school resource officers and our staff members who are driving buses and distributing meals. You'll also see that same sort of partnership when you walk into some community centers and you see our school resource officers providing support to our students as well as to staff members. It's just a great example of partnership, and it's this type of partnership that gets us the high results that we have right now, but also will help us to address any areas of weakness where we see students that have high absenteeism or are not engaging in Canvas. And so let me get back to the numbers a little bit and be specific about what these folks are doing. We've established CARES teams. There is a district level CARES team lead. She's on the phone with us today. She's supervised by a couple of folks, Deborah Harris, Effie McMillan, who are also on the call. And the goal of the CARES team is to get 100% participation in remote learning. You saw the numbers that I just reported to you, and those numbers are high, but we want to get them to 100%, and they're not at 100% yet. And so what do? Well, first of all, they identify those students that are not active in Canvas. They also identify those students that have high absenteeism. And the first step is to make a referral. Once a referral is made, they can see if the problem can be solved at the school level, and if it can, that's great. But if not, they're going to escalate that to a district level lead member who can provide additional support. So we set out to evaluate how is the CARES team doing. And this is not just a summative evaluation that we bring to the board and say at the end of all this time, how did they do? What's really nice is that we provide a formative evaluation. And that formative evaluation has helped the CARES team to think about how they can improve the work that they're doing. They found some loopholes in the work that they were doing, and they said we really want to tighten up and make sure that we are serving all of the kids that need to be served and that we're getting the results. So this is the overview of what the CARES team does. First thing they do is they make a referral, and you see some of the reasons that a referral may take place. A student may want to get to those meals that we just described, and yet they don't have access to do that for one reason or another. That would be a reason to make a referral. A student may not be logging into Canvas regularly. That would be a reason to make a referral. Maybe they have high absenteeism. So there's a lot of reasons why a student might be referred to the CARES team. And then the next step, the expectation for the next step is that they are contacted. Those students get contacted by the CARES team to really be specific about the reason that they were referred, maybe the reason they're not engaged, or the reason that they've been absent. And then it's our hope that we're going to see those issues get resolved because the CARES team is able to get the resources to the students and get them back on track and get them engaged. So how's the team doing? Well, I provided two numbers for you just to see the dramatic change that we're beginning to see over time here. So as of September 8th, the CARES team had gotten 488 referrals. And see how quickly that jumped between September 8th and September 15th? That there were 762 referrals in that short period of time. So our schools are paying very close attention to kids that have needs and then trying their best to address those needs through the supported CARES team. You'll note that some students have multiple referrals, so this does not necessarily indicate number of students. It does indicate number of referrals. So the next step in the process after a student has been referred, the student needs to be contacted. And so you'll see originally of the 488 referrals, well, there were 512 contacts made. Well, how would that number be larger? Obviously, some students are contacted more than once. It's going to take a number of contacts to get the problem solved. But look at this dramatic shift you see from September 8th to September 15th. It just shows you how hard our staff members are working to contact students and families to help resolve whatever issues are out there. And this is why we have such high activity in Canvas. This is why we have such a low number of students that meet that high absenteeism criteria. So then what we tried to do is break it down a little further, okay? And we looked at those September 8th numbers, 488 referrals, 512 contacts. So of those 488 students that have been 488 referrals, 182 students have both a referral and a contact. And so that was an example we talked about where we said, now look, not every student had been contacted yet, and that needs to change. And so that's why evaluation work takes place in a formative way. We noticed that there were some students that have been referred, but a contact hadn't been made, and you can see the big shift that happened in our contact numbers. And so that is increasing, and I'm happy to bring you back a report in time as we collect more data on this. But 182 students had been contacted who had referrals, and of those 182 students, 92 students had had their issues resolved. And this is a number we're going to continue to track over time to continue to make sure that we're solving students' problems to get them back to 100% engagement. So this is the other piece, and this is where you kind of get down into the weeds, right? We're interested in seeing, so what are the reasons why students need to get referred? And when we resolve their problems, what really was the problem? And sometimes it was technology support. As I mentioned earlier, Kevin's team has done a great job to get hotspots in the hands of students and laptops. Sometimes that was the issue. Maybe the laptop they had wasn't working and we got them one that was working. Maybe they didn't have internet connectivity and we were able to solve that problem. We found a big need for interpreters. And so the CARES teams have been able to meet that need, and that has gotten students' issues resolved. And often, kids get referred because they're not attending or they're not attending frequently enough. And so a call from a CARES team member where somebody just says, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to check in with this student on a regular basis so that we can improve the outcomes for that student. So those are issues that we've been able to resolve, and it just proves that really the CARES team work is working. Well, what about those issues that we haven't been able to resolve yet? Well, sometimes really fixing a problem and understanding the dynamics requires a home visit. And so for that reason, it just takes more time to solve the problems. So we'll need to go out to the home, see exactly what's happening there. Sometimes those students have transportation issues. Maybe that means they need to get to a meal site, but that's a challenge, and we'll work with them to solve that challenge. The other one that we see coming up over and over again is this student motivation, or really should be lack of student motivation. And so here's the thing, we're not going to give up on kids, right? And so these referrals that have been made will continue to receive contacts from us. And so we're motivated, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we get our students motivated. So that's the end of the data that we've collected at this point. I'm happy to address questions that you may have about anything that we've reported here.
Any questions for Mr. Kraft? I have one.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I have my hand raised, but I'll wait for you.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Ms. Burke. You may go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Board Member Parker. Mr. Kraft, I wanted to ask a question, a very specific question. I had asked Dr. Harrison, and she said that we would be provided this data, and I used the term students who have not logged in at all. And if they have logged in, how many times have they missed showing up and being engaged since logging in? Do we have that data?
Yes, ma'am. Be happy to show it to you. It's right here. So this data right here shows you the students that have not logged in. They have had zero activity in Canvas, and so you can see that number is about 2,800 students. This is the breakdown by race, by gender, and by grade span. These are the students that have not logged in, not been active at all in Canvas.
Okay, thank you so much, because I did not hear that language used, and I think it's very important for us to use the same language this first semester of school, first quarter of school that we used in the spring. Okay, and so our efforts are to get 100% of our students engaged and active. Can we get data that will show how many have logged in one time, but they have maybe, you said 17% of, you said you're kind of collecting this data or determining your data based on missing 17% of the days. can we get a breakdown by day? See, we haven't had but how many days so far? Can we get a breakdown by day? How many students have actually shown up? I know that the teachers report this information daily to principals, and they report it to you. So can we get a breakdown by day, the number of students who are not showing up or who have not shown up by grade level?
There is a daily absent report, yes, ma'am, that can be run and provided.
Okay, and so we can get it for the days that the students have been in school so far.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and it'll be broken down by grade level. And when can we receive that?
I'm going to have to work with the technology department, so I hesitate to give you a time frame right now. But let me get with the technology department and get back to you and give you a timeline.
Okay, and I really appreciate it, Mr. Kraft. What we want to do is make sure that we catch students immediately and give them the services or the instruction that they need to get caught up so that they will not get behind. We're just starting school. This is the first quarter. And if we can identify those students, and I know that you're doing a great job, CARES team, and I appreciate it, but if we can identify those students and try to get them engaged so that they will not continue to fall behind, that is the goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kaplan, I think you had a hand up.
Yes, so with the CARES teams, and they were identifying a lot of the reasons, a lot of the referrals, and some were technology, some motivation, some translators. What is the biggest problem? What is the biggest concern that they have seen as far as the referrals?
I asked a couple of them, well, they're all on the call. So Daryl, do you want to share your experience? And maybe Ashley, you can chime in, but Daryl, can you, is Daryl on the call? I know I saw Bryant or Daryl.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Harrison and Dr. Chair Parker. What we've seen today, I've ran into something today that has really puzzled us. I also was with the tech assistant. In some, we had a hotspot. We was able to obtain a hotspot quick. Thank you to Dr. Harrison making all of that happen for us. We were able to obtain a hotspot real fast and get it back over to the house. Even having a hotspot in some areas, some parents cannot still get online because of where they are. And they said that they can get online if they had regular Wi-Fi. That's what I ran into today. It was one that I ran into at the very beginning where it was an 82-year-old mother, great-grandmother that was raising her son, her great-grandson, and she just had no help at all understanding what was going on. And I was able to sit there and walk them through everything that they needed to get done, even down to the point of having her medicine delivered to her house and getting that done for her, as well as her great-grandson getting his appointments done via Skype as well. And so that's the kind of stuff we're really hitting the ball with and understanding that in some areas of Forsyth County, even the hot spots are not even working. And so I know for a fact that when we meet with Dr. Harrison on tomorrow, that was something I was going to bring up.
So we meet every Friday to go over their work. Javier, do you want to chime in? Javier, or maybe either Miss Sanhana? Speak up just a little bit, son.
Yes, it's mostly the connectivity. Most of the students have forgotten steps, so we are having to work with them. Some of them have forgotten passwords, so we are having to give them the passwords. That's the
Okay, may have to put that in the chat box, but Javier is one of our members. Joel Sahir is with us as well. Joel, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, to answer, thank you, Dr. Harrison, and thank you to all the board members for this evening. what I've run into is a lot of frustration from the parents, and they feel overwhelmed as well. I went on a case actually on the second day we started out, and I went on a call for a high school student that wasn't engaged and hadn't engaged at all so far. And when I was told that the mother might not take to me, so when I get there and nobody answers, I call the number, and the mother says she didn't know who I was, but she was 5 minutes away. I informed her I'm there to try to help get her student engaged, and she said, "Well, I'll be there in 5 minutes." When she got there, the older sibling that I was there for was having some issues with the mother, so she was actually out the house. She was also having issues with the second oldest sibling, and that sibling was in a group home. But she still had some other children there, and 3 of them were actually in the school district, and she could not get them logged in. And she was having a hard time because she had went to 2 different schools to try to get help, and she was frustrated from that. I mean, very frustrated. So I was able to show her with the paperwork she had, with their emails and their student numbers, and I was able to show her step by step how to get them in, so that way she could do it. And by the time I left, she was so grateful and happy that I had came, because she was like nobody was hearing her. So I think that's a big thing that we're running into. And actually a half hour after I was gone, we were making another stop, and the older sibling that the actual referral came for was calling because she evidently had talked to the mother and wanted to let us know that she wanted to get back in school, wanted to get engaged. And I put her with the assistant principal that had referred me, and they were able to get that going as well. So the main thing we're finding is the parents are frustrated sometimes because they're trying to manage all of the students. And so when they do get some help and they do get somebody there to talk to them through it, they feel so much more satisfied. And we're going on one call for one student, and we're finding 2, 3 other siblings that are students. So we find households that need help. So that's a big thing we're running into. Thank you.
And also, once they complete their stop for engagement, they're assigned to a social worker for follow-up. And so there's a follow-up process with the families to be sure that they are. And I wanted to mention that the 2,500 students, we don't just go with those students, we go by referrals, because some of those students have left the district, and we're sort of whittling through those numbers to be sure that they're even with us anymore. So that number may be a number that we're working through, but they're working off referrals from the schools. Thank you.
Ms. Motsinger, I think that you had a hand up.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I was curious, how many students do we have in our total population this year compared to this time last year? Does it seem like a much smaller number?
No, it's not a much smaller number. It's a slightly smaller number. We particularly see fewer in kindergarten, but it's not a much smaller number overall.
Okay, so what was since last year?
I don't have that number in front of me, but I can get it for you.
All right, thank you.
Chairwoman Parker, this is Board Member Woodbury.
Yeah. Started to say you had a hand up. So
Okay,
yes.
I didn't know if you.
Well, my little hand thing isn't working quite the way it's supposed to, but I'm trying to keep up with it. So go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the CARES teams. I have I guess a personal preference in education around this model that I think Jeffrey Canada, hipped us to about 20 years ago with the Harlem Zone. And it's very familiar with the community to help students move along. And in this time where we are in a pandemic, I think that this could be definitely a national model of connecting to our families in a sincere and real way. And again, I think, the philosophy with Jeffrey Canada is just about community schools, that, our schools exist in our community, and therefore, our families and children should be very familiar with us. as it seems like with the CARES teams, you all are becoming probably extended members of those families, because you're, very focused on trying to help those family members. It really touched my heart to hear helping the elderly with things that's really out of our scope. But while you're there, you may have to do whatever you have to do to help our families. So I'm really humbled by your work, and I thank you all so much for service in our district at this time. And I love the Winston-Salem Forsyth County CARES team shirts that I see. I think Sahir, yeah, that's a great a great uniform. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, those are great. I think that Board Member Jones had a hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Parker. I just really have kind of the same sentiment that Chair Woodbury just shared. I know that we have some additional dollars coming to help us pay for the CARES teams, but as we start to think about budgets next year and hopefully getting a little bit more back to normal, I'd like to really see this continue, because I believe that our students have these same struggles, year after year. It may not be logging. It may be logging on. It just may be things going on in the home. So I really like that, being out in the community and really building those relationships. Relationships are so important, and building that trust. And so if there's a way that we can hold on to this kind of model and do that every year, I think that would definitely be a benefit to our students. And so thank you for what you're doing. It's good to hear those stories. Thank you for sharing.
It's a great team.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful, and thank y'all.
I think Ms. Berg had a hand up, Ms. Parker. I don't know if you could see that.
Okay, no, I don't see it. Ms. Hart, do you have another question?
I do. Thank you so much. I did want to ask, anyone can answer this question. For the hot spots, are they available 24 hours a day? I know during the spring we had limits on the hours that they were available. Are they 24 hours this time?
So they are unlimited data. Kevin, are you on the call? Kevin,
Yes.
Can you explain the change this fall?
Once we moved all of our hotspots to an unlimited plan, so all 6,500 are unlimited data. Once we moved them to an unlimited data plan, we also opened up the hour restrictions. You are correct, Ms. Burke, we did have them limited on hours to try to save the data when we were capped. Back in the spring and going into the fall, we still had a data cap, but we've been able to work with our carrier to make those unlimited, so we are now opening up the hour restrictions as well.
Thank you so much. And I have another question, and it's kind of following along the same line as Board Member Motzinger. Normally, for the past couple of years, we've had an enrollment of students right around 55,000. And right now, these numbers are right here at 52,931 is what we saw on one slide, 52,878 on another slide. And I'm sorry if the explanation was given. I did not understand it. Can someone clear that up for me?
And in the spring, we had 53,000. I have not known us to have 50,000 since I've been here. So, Andy, were you able to find out what we had this time last year?
I don't have that at my fingertips right now, but I will work on it for you.
So I know for me, it was 53,000 that we signed off on. So I don't know about 55,000, but we certainly can get you those numbers. Actually, before this evening, I'll ask Andy to work with IT to put that in the chat box.
Okay, yeah. I'm just
if he can.
Thank you so much. I'm just
Will do.
if numbers are dropping, I would want to know why. And then the very last thing I want to say again, thank you to the CARES team. I really appreciate all that you all are doing for our kids and for our families. And many of you are familiar to me, and I want to say hello to you all personally. So thanks again.
All right, thank you. I had a couple of questions on the neighborhood meals. when they go to the neighborhoods, are they on a scheduled time? Do they stay there for a few minutes, or how's the neighborhood meal drop off working?
Good evening.
Carly?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So they do have scheduled times. There are yard signs that advertise the free meals at the locations that have the location within a complex or a community on them, as well as listing the time that we will be arriving on site. Some of those sites may be 15 minutes. Some of them may be longer. Some of that really just depends on the quantity that we are serving at that location. We've adjusted that as we've been doing this since March to accommodate each of those communities.
Okay, thank you. And my next question was the buses that have the hot spots. Are there folks on there that can help students who might need help either logging on, or is there a cares person, or is there anyone, or is a bus driver or anybody who might, if they need tutoring help or whatever? Are there any folks there other than the bus driver that give assistance to children?
Sure. Is Chris Cox, are you on the call this evening, or Kevin may be able to speak to some of the training that could have been done? I'm honestly not aware.
Yeah, I'm on the call. Yes, we do not have any cares teams with them. We have multiple bus drivers. We've assigned 2 or 3 bus drivers to each bus that's there. We do not have any students that are actually getting on the bus, but some are coming to the bus, and those drivers have been trained and have some paperwork to help them get logged in.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from board members or anyone? All right, we will move on to our next agenda item. And if we can pull up the agenda, I don't have one in front of me.
Lisa, will you pull that up, please?
Great, thank you. The second agenda item is reopening schools, the metrics. We have numerous folks, Bill Powell, Jan Atkinson, and Dion Jenkins, will be doing this presentation, so I'm not sure who's going to start that, but
I will start that, Ms. Parker. I'll pull it up, and Lisa, if you'll drop the screen, I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Okay. Can you see it at this time, Ms. Parker?
Yes, ma'am. It is on the smaller. There you go. There's the larger one. Looks great now. Thank you.
Okay. So on March 14th, the announcement was made that Governor Cooper made the decision that we would close and have 2 weeks to start our virtual learning. We started within a 4-day window. We worked all spring to be sure that we kept up as best we could with the instructional expectations to keep children engaged. Policy changes were made, grading opportunities were adjusted, and certainly our employees were certainly very supportive of all that had to be done. Daily meetings were held with principals and central office staff. July 14th, Governor Cooper moved the entire state to Plan B. And the 17th, we had a special call board meeting to consider Plan B or Plan C. And at that time, the decision was made by the Board of Education, recommended by myself, that we remain in Plan C for several reasons. We had various dependents on us opening successfully. that we did not feel were met. And so today, on August 17th, we started our first remote learning class. So 187 days from that original announcement, we're back before you to talk about the dependents that we identified as being short or having some shortcomings when we met with you July 17th. One was to fully have a good, safe return plan with the different phases and different aspects of the metrics that were met. We wanted to be sure we had a good facilities plan. We had all of our cleaning supplies, our facilities readiness audits were complete. We had budgetary needs that were not met at that time, and we wanted to be sure that we understood the community spread and we acknowledged the community spread and its impact on our reopening. And so again, just want to remind everyone that we really want to have a safe, vibrant, and equitable learning environment for all children. Hence our CARES team. Part of the CARES team is to try to get out and certainly work with students to be sure that they are supported as much as possible. And we certainly appreciate the tremendous work. We didn't mention the community learning centers that have been operating at various levels and the teams that have worked on those centers. We've kept in mind health and safety for students and staff. It's the most important thing that we can consider as we go through this process of learning. Today, Governor Cooper announced North Carolina school districts are permitted to choose option A for elementary students. The governor made it clear that this plan was an option, as many smaller communities have a much lower number of cases. The governor made it clear that the move to Plan A for elementary students was an option and still may not be the right choice for many districts. Each community is unique, said Governor Cooper. Tonight, we are here to really talk about next steps for us. And on the heels of the governor's announcements, we cannot recommend Plan A at this time because we are just not prepared to leap from remote learning to Plan A. We received many emails already about Plan A, B, or C. But given the community metrics and our readiness to move forward, we wanted to walk you through a slow transition into Plan B this evening, or hybrid or remote face-to-face instructional model. We feel this is the best way for our students, teachers, and our entire community to return. So this presentation will focus on Plan B. Wanted to remind everyone that we have digested the materials and used the materials provided by the CDC, our health department, our North Carolina Department of Instruction, and we've had planning teams since May. Just before that, on our reopening, our Board of Education, you all have provided many insights and a lot of materials for us to consider. We've talked to our Teacher Advisory Council, Classified Advisory Council, our parent and student surveys have helped guide a lot of our work. Our focus groups and our reopening checklist has been developed and guides the work at the schools. Each principal was asked to assemble a employee planning team at their own individual schools because we know that each individual school operates differently and we provided them guidance. This reminds us of Plan A, B, and C. We're in Plan C at this time, and we're looking at a moderate social distancing plan of B. We recognize that we're in phase 2.5, safer at home, and there are many aspects of Plan 2.5 of the governor's announcement some weeks ago about 2.5 that would change. We at this time wanted to highlight that playgrounds cannot be open at this time because our sprayers have not arrived. However, if they do arrive before we transition in, we look forward to making that adjustment, but we just wanted to highlight that our sprayers need to be here before then. And then these are other aspects of Plan 2.5 that have been articulated by the governor and are out there on their website. So putting it all together, again, I wanted to remind you, these were the 4 areas that we felt uncomfortable with when we came to you in July and asked to remain in Plan C. So at this time, we're going to start with the metrics, and I'll go back to community spread. We have had several informational sessions. Myself, Jan Atkinson, Darrell Walker, and Dion Jenkins sit on a weekly meeting with the county, a reopening meeting hosted by our county manager, Dudley Watts. When I can't make it, it's certainly somebody there to represent. For the most part, we listen in on the report from the health department, and there are several metrics out there about community spread, which does impact our ability to open up wisely. So I'll turn this over to Bill Powell at this time to explain the metrics that are before you.
Good afternoon, Superintendent, Chairman Parker, and board members. I wanted to just spend a minute on that metrics before I hit this chart and say, I'm going to show you several charts. Every agency and group, they produce or analyze the basic set of data and have different reasons for analyzing it, interpreting it. Some for business, some for residents, some for restaurants, schools, health, universities. So everyone takes a general set of data, which is what we have here in front of you. In this massive data, and how do we tie it into return to school? We can talk about percentages and cases. So in this instance, I want to start with North Carolina, total cases, and this is as of 9/14. If anybody wants to look it up, by the way, it's what they show, what Dr. Cohen had on TV today. NCDHHS, this is the chart she had. And it shows a nice smooth climb up, and then it goes down, and then some return back up a little bit. This could be considered around the time students return to college. Dr. Cohen illustrated that. But what I want to point out is a nice smooth climb. And this all shows a downward trend at the right-hand side. Next slide. So this is Forsyth County. So when Forsyth County came, same data, same agency, click a button on the website, Forsyth County. And it starts up, but Forsyth County is a little different. It reached a peak at 6.1, and I call this my 2-hump camel because we got a bump, we go down, we get another bump, and then we had a general downward trend other than a little hiccup about the time students may be returned 14 days after students returning. So this data is 2 different, but I wanted to focus on Forsyth County and drill down. So next. Okay. This talks about percentage of students. We have the under 14 and total cases of 602. That's under 14 years of age. This is Forsyth County, 6,100 as of September 5th. But it's less. Then as we move into the age 15 to 24, 34, 44, 54, and you can see that a 20-year-old or a 24-year-old has the same proficiency to get or transmit the disease as any other all the way to 44 years old. So all our high school through 44, they're all in the same bucket with the same things. So this shows younger. Now, this is the percentage of total cases, not the percentage recently, but it does show younger, has a less proficiency. Let's go to the next one. Now, this is gathered from Forsyth County Department of Public Health, and this is their chart. It's their surveillance chart. It starts out with 5% up to 9, almost 10%, and this is over a period from 8/16 to 9/5. So the general trend has been in a downward movement. some of the difficulties with using percentages only. So I switched in this from number of cases to percentage. Some of these percents, these are percent positives, but I'm going to give you a little bit of difficulty in managing from percentages. So imagine if there were a lot of people and they were forced to go take a COVID test before they could go to work, go to school. They had to take it. And so you may have a lot of healthy people walk in the door and they're going to take COVID test. So the percentage may be low. Or conversely, if it's a particular day, and there's a group in a hotspot, and everybody in the hotspot decides that day or two they're going to go get a test, then that percentage of test given may be much higher. So when you look at the test given in a particular day, there may be 800 one day and 400 the next. I'm in Forsyth County now. So if it's 800, it may be a 4%, or it may be a 10%, depending on where you're at in the county, what's the area, and what's the need, and who shows up. It's difficult to trend. Notice I said there's lots of what ifs in there. But this shows a good trend, and this says we're getting real close to this 5% everybody's been talking about in Forsyth County. If you want to see this data, you can go to Forsyth County Department of Public Health. You can look it up. It's under the surveillance. Next slide. So what we're trying to do in this is tie together data and learning models. And this is a particular formula, and it analyzes the data. And by the way, you'll see a chart in a minute, and it will use the state's data and interpret it into Forsyth County. And then you look down here, and this chart is an example. And by the way, these X's are done purposely because there's only one of many factors we've got to have. So this talks strictly about number of cases per 10,000 over 14 days. This is not, is the trend going up or down? This is not, how are we doing? Are we having hot spots? Are we having outbreaks? This is strictly that. But the purpose of this chart is to say if you have a low incidence for cases, and this 0 to something, in-person learning for all students, we're regular. And as we increase number of cases, we can go to we'll stay in person for elementary, and maybe we do hybrid, which means strict social distancing, cohorts, and other things for secondary. Then as we increase more, we may be doing strict social distancing, not quite yet, Dr. Harrison. Strict. We may be doing cohorts and cases for everyone. Then as we move to the next one, well, we got more. So elementary can stay in there, but all secondary may be remote. And by the way, that's what the governor and Dr. Cohen said today, wasn't it? They recommended moving toward elementary, and secondary still not there yet. And then if you get so many, you go distance learning for all. So again, I've been quizzed a lot about it. I want to see specific numbers, so when it reaches 12 or 100, I know that I'm going. So let's go to the next model. So this is a model that ties together, this is Forsyth County, 14-day summary, new cases per population, and this assumes Forsyth County, the census page that I went to was 382,000 residents. But what this does, it takes the state's data. The state's data you saw previously is loaded into this program, and it starts to rise. And Forsyth County has the same double hump that you saw in the state's data. What this does, it makes it clearer and cleaner, but that's almost the same look in the gold. What this does, though, is as you trend, it starts to tell you where the trends are going in the dotted lines. So this says the trend is going up, but the actual data says it's going down. So we're going to watch the trend, but notice it's right on the line. Now I'm going to go back and talk about Memorial Day. So Memorial Day came, and about 14 days later, we hit this peak. Then we had a decrease, and then we had July 4th, and we started increasing, and 14 days after July 4th. Then we didn't have a lot of holidays, but we did have college and school return, and we've had a little hiccup in that. And then we're back going downward. And then we have Labor Day that happened in here, so 14 days after Labor Day, I don't know. Will it trend up again? I can't answer that question. Only actual people and tests will give that. But what this does now is tie Forsyth County from Forsyth County's data into Forsyth County. And we're in remote learning. And we're in this phase, which is where we are. And this is August, the beginning of August, when our Board of Education said we're going to stay in Plan C. So this marries with what we did in mid-August, and it continued down, and we should talk about returning in phases. Now, purposely, at this point, we just said we're going to start bringing them back. And when we get to a level, is it 5%? That's one metric. Is it this chart? That's another metric. Is it going up? Is it going down? Those are two more metrics. Do we have any hot spots? That's other metrics. So this chart is not the do-all, be-all. What this does is say, we're going to move to start returning. And from another slide earlier, we should start with younger students. And you probably remember Dr. Cohen, even today, if you saw it, and she said, those children under 10 may have less proficiency to receive and transmit the disease. So that's becoming more standard in all the information out there. So we should start with the lower grades and move to the higher grades. And then we'll reach a point where we say, we're back with everyone. But this is a process to do that. Let's see. And what I want you to, if we get the chart again, I want to make one more point in there on the previous chart is, as this has peaks and valleys, we don't know where we're going for the next 6 months. We don't have a vaccine. Are we going to have more peaks and valleys as we move from September, October, November? We have flu season. We don't know that. But the good news is every one of these bumps is a little less than the previous bump. So hopefully we're generally, over time, going to be down here and we're going to be in school. Next slide. So I'll cover this real quickly, but this tries to tie us back together. Community spread at or below the levels. You saw a chart that illustrated that. We have sustained over a 14-day period. No significant outbreaks, and we're going to follow the state metrics. And that lets us take massive data and put it into a safe return plan. That's the plan. Next.
Thank you, Bill. And so moving on, another area that you talked about was a safe return plan.
Excuse me, this is Elizabeth.
Yes, ma'am.
Could I respond to I have a couple questions before moving on? Is that okay? Or do we need to do all four before we can come back to?
No, that's up to you all. Ms. Parker, that's up to you.
Yeah, let's go on and take a question now, and then we can, if it pertains only to this. Go ahead, Ms. Monsinger.
So my question is, which physicians in our community have been involved in this formulation?
We've talked with Forsyth County Department of Health.
No, which physicians have been involved in this? Because my understanding is, and Bill, I respect you enormously, but you are not an epidemiologist. And I really requested repeatedly that we had physicians from both Novant and Wake Forest Baptist Health involved in coming up with the scientific metrics that we would be following.
Dr. Miller from the health department, and we have actually Dr.
I just heard a presentation from somebody who I like enormously, who is not an epidemiologist, and I feel very strongly and asked for it repeatedly that we had physicians who had specific training in epidemiology to be guiding this particular portion of our return plan. So I need to make that very clear that I have asked for that from the beginning, and I don't see it here. And as much as I respect Mr. Powell, which is enormously, he is not an epidemiologist and does not have that training. So I'd like to just say very clearly that I want that before we start using this as, quote, real data. Thank you.
And Ms. Mossinger, they're not going to give us guidance. They will just give us data. We have been on the call with one of our Novant physicians. We've been on the large district planning team with 2 of our Novant physicians. And one is a parent at Mount Tabor. We have been in the Duke project. They give you information. They give you metrics. We have been in touch with the health department. We've actually now I have not, but they've actually talked to Dr. Miller, who has higher metrics. And so the reality is that we're just presenting to you this formula. The algorithm actually came from the health department. And
I would seriously like to see an epidemiologist or physician as part of the work. I'm hearing about all the people who are being asked, except for the ones who have specific expertise. The head of our department, again, is a very wonderful, fine community servant. He's not a physician.
Are you talking about Dr. Ohl and Dr. Miller?
No, I am talking about the head of the health department. And I would really ask him please to be a part of our conversations.
Well, they are part of our conversations. If you would like one of them to come to a board member meeting, we can get them to.
We're using metrics. I would like to have an epidemiologist or a physician presenting this to us, and not someone who is a very wonderful person who's worked in operations as his professional career.
Well, if you'll give us the names of the people you'd like to come to the next board meeting, you're in the field, we'll call them up and get them to come, ma'am. We have no problem with that. We've actually reached out to the people that have been recommended by any board member. So I've been in meetings with them actually. If you would like that in a particular person, and as you can imagine, we have various levels and opinions. We have Duke out there, we have Wake, we have Novant, and we have the health department. So if you have anybody in particular you want, we will gladly get them to come to the October meeting.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, Ms. Motsinger, if you want to work on that and get a name to them, then that would be good. Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So relative to district-wide planning teams, we have district-wide planning teams continuing, school-level planning teams. We have worked on the building cleanliness, and that continues to work. Additional dollars recently, that's been 1.5 million additional dollars dedicated that's been provided to us through the Department of Instruction to support healthcare professionals who manage the isolation of students who become ill throughout the day. And what that looks like, we'll have to work with them on that, and staff and teachers in the building setting an example, wearing masks, social distancing, and best practices from other school districts. We had 2 of our executive team members go down to Union County and do some visits of schools that have already opened. And so that these are areas that we continue to address. And again, we've asked principals to have school level planning teams, provided them a checklist that sort of replicated the things that needed to happen for a safe opening. One of the things that I've done for you all is send you the positive cases and those that have to be in contact tracing. And our plan is to have a dashboard on our district website if opening is approved, so that we actually can see the number of cases and the number of those who have contact tracing, or who have been sent home quarantine, who've been quarantined. We also have targeted informational campaign. Brent and his team has worked with the health department and with the Health Alliance to identify videos and those kinds of things that will be out there for safe return for people to watch and educate our population, and staff identified to follow up with the person who fails the screening. So anytime there's a failure of the screening process, then we do have staff follow up, and they talk to those individuals to see why they're failing and how much exposure they have had. So we continue to work on the plan relative to facilities and transportation. We have an opening manual, and that has, of course, been shared but continues to be edited. We have staff training videos. School facility audits will be completed by October 7th. Daryl and Lauren are taking care of those school facility audits, and as they go out, they identify challenges that exist and bring that back to senior team. Changes in school times will be announced by October 1st. When we meet again, if that is necessary. What we must do, regardless of your vote and plan to stay in C, we must start collecting transportation requests from students on Monday if we are to transport students in a Plan B. This does not imply that you will vote on Plan B. It just simply means we must be prepared to collect residential students' names so that transportation routes can be developed. There is no way that we will be able to provide transportation for Choice and Magnet until we understand what the residential student requirements are. So I wanted to pause there to see if there were any questions so far.
Nothing. Ms. Burke, you had your hand up, I do believe.
And Ms. Parker, just know that when I'm I can't see the hand, so stop me at any time.
I know, okay. I will. Okay. I think we have 3 people with hands up, if I'm correct, Ms. Burke. Ms. Motzinger, I'm not sure whether yours is up for this again, and Board Member Jones. So Ms. Burke, we'll go ahead with you first.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I wanted to ask Mr. Powell a question about the data that he provided. I noticed that his data was prior to Labor Day, and we know that people got together during Labor Day, and possibly those numbers that he showed us, we will possibly see a shift in Labor Day.
Yes. Yes, Board Member Burke. This data is through September 14th. So it does not have the last day that shows kind of a neutral, but it's not 14 days after the 3rd yet. So that isn't out yet.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm understanding because you had several screens and the date cutoff was September the 5th. And so for the screen that is showing now, explain that again, because I see and I saw
that's September 14th. If you would go back 2 previous, one more. Could you back one more screen, please?
That's it.
No.
Do you want to send the 14th out?
No, I'd like to go to the slide prior to that.
There's not one.
Oh. Well, that one. Because that data is as of 9/14, and this is the data on that chart.
Okay, and this says this is for North Carolina. Do we have this data for Forsyth County?
Yes, this slide. 914.
Okay.
And this is the same shape as you look, Ms. Burke, with the double camel in a general decline to Forsyth County. This chart data is the exact data that's on the metrics chart.
I guess I'm a little confused because the date at the bottom has September the 1st, although the date at the top, it says it's for North Carolina, and it had September the 14th. But we're looking.
The 1st is right here, and then this all is past the 1st, right here.
Okay, but we don't have any dates to show how far past the 1st, and that's confusing. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, wait just a minute, Ms. Bramer. I think we got a couple ahead of you. Ms. Motsinger, did you have another question?
No, I lowered my hand.
Okay, sorry. And then, so Board Member Jones, do you have a question? And then Ms. Bramer.
Yes, Ms. Parker. I just wanted to say, I realize we have the transportation plan and we're doing that around Plan B, but it was my understanding that, with the governor today saying that elementary could do Plan A if the district felt that way. Is there, I'm not getting the sense that we're going to get recommendation from you, Dr. Hairston, right now to go into Plan A as far as in the building. But is there a way to expand transportation options if we were to do transportation in Plan A?
Daryl called on that today, Ms. Jones, and I think everybody was just sort of a little shocked. And so, so Plan A does have fewer transportation restrictions, and we should be able to see what those are going to be in the coming days. So yes, they will be less lenient. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I would just like to see us try to explore that.
Okay. And I will say that our team, just so you know, did meet with Dr. Miller, who is an epidemiologist at the health department. I did want to make sure I confirmed that before I said that. And I will ask Dr. Miller to perhaps be on our call on October 1st.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hairston, for that. Board Member Bramer, you had a question?
I do. Do we know the percentage of employees we have that live outside of Forsyth County, and do we have the accompanying numbers for those counties?
We do not, but we can certainly get that to you, and we would just give you what's posted on the health department, but we'll certainly share that with you. Sure. Mm-hmm.
I mean, not particular names, just so we can have a percentage of who's coming from out of county into county that might be exposed our students.
Sure, and I'm going to say that might take about a week's time, but we'll make a note and follow up with, maybe what we'll do is have that at the next one, but we'll certainly send that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so again, I'm sorry.
Dr. Hairston, can I ask one question in here?
Yeah.
The healthcare professionals, those are the ones that I'm taking it that are with the extra dollars that we have. So will there be one in each school? And my follow-up to that will be that if we have any students that do test positive, will those automatically be reported to us, or will that be a self-reporting type from the individual?
So there is screening before you get on the bus, and we do plan to have an additional person on our school buses to help with the screening. There's screening before they go into school. We know that a lot of individuals will be asymptomatic, but we will do our temperature checks and our questions, and students will go on school. If a student becomes ill during the day, there's an isolation process. So there's a process that the student must be placed in an area until they are picked up. Our healthcare professionals, we are hiring 16 healthcare professionals. And what we're in the process of doing is see how we can best distribute those individuals. We have 7 that are employed by the district and 33, I believe, and Ms. McManus, correct me if I'm wrong, but we realize some of those belong to the special education students. So right now our plan is to have, Ms. Parker, someone who is assigned to the school, because right now, which is something we need to look at, every nurse has about 6 schools assigned to them. That is way too many. So we're hiring the 16, adding them to our team so they can have fewer schools. But the goal is to have someone compensated at the school who will be trained and manage students with the proper PPE. We cannot even get the PPE for isolation until we identify the plan that we're going to use to move, until we transition back in. So to do the training, so every school at this time, and this was based on our meetings with the principals over the last 2 days, we need to identify someone, compensate them, and also provide them the proper PPE and training. But we are adding 16 additional healthcare, whether they be nurses or healthcare professionals, to our team.
That's wonderful. I know school nurses have been something that we've tried to lobby for years. So that'll be good. And my other question for that would be, so if we send a child home and they do have a test, will it be a self-reporting that they will have to report back to us if they test positive, or is there an apparatus that with the testing centers that they will report directly to the school system?
It's reported to the health department, and the health department does the contact.
Okay, good. And I think Ms. Motzinger, did you have a hand up? I think I saw that go up. Is that correct?
That is correct. About healthcare professionals, so we'll have about 16 more to our, 6 school nurses. And will that be just for managing students who have COVID-type symptoms, or will they be involved in all the other kinds of activities the school nurses might be involved in?
The 16 will be dedicated to COVID.
They'll be dedicated to COVID, okay. And what are staff and teachers who are not following guidelines, what are we as a district going to be doing about that? If a staff member or somebody is not wearing a mask when they are supposed to be?
Well, the ones that I ran into who tried to inform me they had another plan are that we put them through retraining. After so many times, we'll have to go to personnel and deal with it as a discipline consequence. But that's a violation of policy. So the first initial thing that we want to do is retrain these employees.
Okay. And the other question I have, so I work, as probably many of you know, I work in health services at a local university. And we have very strict protocols about who's been exposed, that if you have had a direct exposure less than 6 feet without a mask more than 10 minutes, you need to quarantine for 14 days. If you have COVID-type symptoms, you are absolutely required to be tested for COVID, or you could ultimately be removed from campus. So one of the things I know, and it is not unique to my workplace, I think that's pretty universal across the university setting, is really strict guidelines about exposures, about contact, about quarantining, about how many days. And my concern is, as a district, how are we going to communicate and or enforce these kinds of protocols?
So I'll turn that over to Jevelyn. She's been doing as charge of our contact tracing. You know, we did hire, you all approved Jennifer Corso, who actually is a nurse with an epidemiology. Hello? With an epidemiology background, and we have people that we're training to do the contact tracing. And so, Jevelyn, would you like to talk about your work so far? Maybe we'll get her on the call, but we have a process in place, Ms. Motzinger, People immediately know that if they have symptoms. We have a pretty good screening process, by the way. So people can't enter the building without going through the screening process. But if a person comes to the principal, if they answer any of those questions, they have to immediately go to a supervisor. HR is contacted, and they're given a protocol. And I think we have about 125 staff members over time who have been quarantined or sent home for 14 days. And then those that are positive, there's a contact tracing protocol that we follow. So we have a pretty good protocol in place.
And what about students?
Student protocols have been defined in our manual, and that's a pretty extensive. And what I'll do before the first is send you all the presentation from July 17th. And you can kind of go through that and see if that helps a little bit. But we have a pretty well-defined protocol for students as well. And I don't know if other members of my team want to address that, you can go ahead. But Michael Pesh worked to develop that protocol before he left. So we'll be sure we share those things.
This is Board Member Burke. I have another question.
I started to say I saw some more hands go up, so Ms. Burke, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I wanted to go back to what we were discussing if employees don't wear the mask. And Dr. Hairston, you said that we would do some retraining and, depends on the number of times. I'm just asking that we create a policy for how we're going to handle cases like this and not just handle this situation on a case by case. It should be, we should have a set of rules, a protocol that we follow. So we should have a policy. Also, I wanted to know what kind of reassurances are already in place or will we put in place so that if staff members do see something, they can feel comfortable that they can say something without any retaliation.
So we have a policy on mask wearing and we have a progressive discipline policy. So both of those apply here. And I don't know, Dion had to present, she had a presentation with groups. So I don't know if she's on the call. But
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Toss that ball to your court, ma'am.
Yes, and good afternoon, board members. We did make changes to our employee dress code policy, which is AR 4116.8, I believe. And we incorporated language in there that requires employees to comply with all state and other local or federal mandates with regard to PPE, such as face coverings and those sorts of things when they are mandated by those agencies. And so if an employee does not wear a face covering, then they're in violation of that policy. And so we would, under our other discipline policies, would pursue that as appropriate as far as the level of non-compliance. Does that answer your question, Ms. Burke?
And I think the question was, how could employees, what could we do to make sure employees were reporting any violations of social distancing or masking or not wearing masks?
So what I would say is we always try to encourage employees, if they see that this is not going on, to contact Human Resources, and then Human Resources will initiate an additional investigation and determine if it needs to go to Personnel Committee. But we certainly encourage employees to contact either Human Resources, they can contact our office, or the area superintendent so that it can be addressed quickly.
I just want to make sure that there are strong incentives in place, and I'm not certain that retraining is a strong enough incentive to follow the rules, because all it takes is one time to be exposed to COVID and the adverse effects, that it could have on an individual. So I just don't want to risk anyone's life. Thank you.
Do you have some recommendations, Ms. Burke?
I think that we should look at the policy and write into the policy an incentive that would not allow for retraining or second and third chances. I think we need to have a zero tolerance policy for not wearing a mask.
What does that mean? Does that mean termination, suspension? What does that mean?
Well, that's what I'm trying to explore with you and the attorney and any other board member. I'm not going to write policy for the school board. I'm just making a recommendation.
That's certainly something we can bring to the next policy committee. I'm happy to.
I think some ideas need to be tossed around, and yeah, and I think it might take some time to do that before we consider opening school back up. Thank you.
Okay, so
Board Member Jones, wait, sorry, Dr. Harrison, I think
I'm
Board
sorry.
Member Jones, did you have a hand up?
No, ma'am, I did not have my hand up. I think maybe Ms. Bramer did.
Okay, Ms. Bramer, do you have a hand up?
I do.
Okay.
A part of our screening process, I know, is taking a temperature and asking the series of questions, but I was literally just at the doctor's office this week sick, and they explained to me that they're now finding large amounts of people that do not have a temperature. So, and they have no other signs of exposure other than maybe going to a grocery store. So how are we going to handle asymptomatic cases without doing random testing?
We cannot, ma'am.
All right, Dr. Harrison, I think that's all the hands at this point. Go ahead and proceed.
So the additional budgetary needs were satisfied. We needed additional healthcare professionals. Yes, we would love to have additional healthcare professionals, but we feel we have enough to support the work that has to be done. We have additional bus supervision, appropriate daily cleaning of buildings. Again, we're waiting on the sprayers for the playground equipment. So as we look at pre-K through 12, considering vision, mission, objectives, we have safety and health protocols, including social distancing, that we feel like we have worked on signage and training. We've looked at size of buildings, numbers of classrooms, numbers of students that could go in a building layout, parent pickup, drop off, food services. And we also have looked at virtual options versus face-to-face. And when we hear from our parents, we hear from parents who would like to be face-to-face. We also hear from parents who would like to be virtual. So we have an option that we shared with you before, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Kevin can go over this. So I want to be clear that parents who want it virtual from kindergarten through 8th grade have enrolled in the virtual academy. Parents in high school who chose virtual are still with their teacher, and we're placing technology in place so that children can make a choice in high school, remain at home and get the same synchronous instruction, or attend school face-to-face. So before we go to the models, I wanted to stop sharing my screen and ask Mr. Sherrill to remind us of the technology that we're using to do this.
Thank you, Dr. And Ms. Parker, if you wouldn't mind, and Dr. Harrison, just to mute your cameras as well, that way it'll be full screen. That'll be
Sure.
So thank you very much, and good evening, board members. Come to you from Southwest Elementary, first grade classroom this evening, and I wanted to talk about 3 major components that we are adding to our classrooms to support instruction. One of which is a remote camera that I'm standing in front of now that's on a tripod. The second item is integrating our existing sound systems that are purchased through our bond referendums into the setup, and incorporation of a large screen, whether it be a Promethean panel, a projector, or a flat panel TV that are in all of our classrooms in some variety of those. So I'll start with the sound. You'll notice that I'm wearing a microphone that's part of our sound system that's in this first grade classroom. And what's different about this is that, as many of you are aware, that you are used to sitting directly in front of your laptop, talking straight into your microphone to be heard. This microphone gives the teacher the opportunity to move anywhere in the classroom. As you see, if I go off camera now, my audio doesn't change. I'm at the very back of the classroom now, So the audio portion of remote learning, engaging those kids in the homes, this microphone option will carry that audio and keep that consistent no matter where the teacher is in the classroom. So I think that's probably as important as the video feature that we're sharing. So the audio integration, and all we do with that is take a line out from the amplifier straight into the laptop, and then inside of Zoom or Teams, you have a line-in option for your microphone that doesn't require the webcam that I'm standing in front of or the laptop microphone to pick that up. So that's a great feature. And then the video. So I'm standing in front of a tripod here that's out in the middle of the classroom. So if you can envision, kids are sitting in their seats, and I'm also talking directly to the tripod, which represents the students that are at home. So therefore engaging kids face to face and directly addressing those students that are in their homes on remote learning. What you can't see off to my right is I've integrated the Promethean panel. I'll turn this around. So in this scenario, the teacher would be standing in the classroom talking, and just by looking to the right, he or she could see all the kids that are online with either Teams or Zoom by utilizing this Promethean panel that I've got integrated. It could be a flat panel TV that's on the wall, as I mentioned, or even a projector on the wall as well. So, and the third option that they have now, of course, is back over here. They can still go back to their laptop and toggle back to that camera. And as you see now, I'm back in front of my laptop, so you've got that camera angle as well that can be utilized.
Kevin, I don't want to interrupt, but my phone's going off and people are saying that they're not able to see.
Hang on. How about now? How about now? Am I back now?
Let's see if somebody will text me and tell me that they can see.
That's absolutely.
I can see him.
Mm-hmm. I can see him too, but I think some of the people who are.
Oh, you know what?
You know what?
Can we pin him? Can we pin you, Kevin?
A great point. The live stream from home, great point, Ms. Jones. The live stream from home is coming from the boardroom, and I'm not able to run that at the same time, so we need to pin on that. Let me pin myself. Hang on. Let me go over here and do it. I'm running the boardroom from in here too. So just a moment.
Okay. If you can pin yourself.
Thank you, Kevin. We have teachers and parents who can't see. So.
I did not anticipate that. I need to find my screen. You know what? I can't. Someone else is going to have to pin. I can't pin that because I'm joined on that laptop as me, and I can't see my feed.
Is that good? Is that better? I pinned you, Kevin.
Yeah, it's got to be pinned on the laptop that's going through cable 2 is the issue.
Oh, I see.
Hey, Kevin, do you want me to jump in and pin you?
Yes, if you can, but you're going to have to, I'm going to have to disconnect, and you're going to have to join as you instead of me. You got me, TJ?
Yeah, stay there. I think I can pin you.
Okay. Great catch, Ms. Jones. Didn't think about that side of it. We'll give it just a moment.
So while we're getting that, what we wanted to share again is that the parents who would like to remain virtual have the virtual academy option from K through 8. And the parents in high school who would like to remain virtual, this will be a dual platform for high school teachers and for students. So students will be able to opt out and won't have to attend school if they want to remain virtual. And of course, the students who'd like to attend on the schedule we present would be face-to-face.
So Dr. Harrison, this is Board Member Jones. So the setup that Kevin is showing us, again, for clarification, and I know that we're still having some issues, but we're getting ready to bring it on. We would not see this in a K through 8 classroom. We would only see this in our high schools.
No, this is in every classroom, because if a teacher is in 4th grade and her students are attending school 2 days per week,
okay.
The other days when the kids are at home, the students are at home, we really don't want teachers having to do double duty. And some districts, and not to say negative about other districts, but we talked to our deputy superintendent. Her sisters are teachers, and they're having to teach children face to face and then go somewhere and teach them virtually. So, and since that's in another state, we can talk about that. But that's basically what's happening. So instead of teachers having to do double duty when children are not in school full time, this technology allows a teacher to teach from the classroom. Now, it is a limited space, and they will have to use their document cameras and switch back and forth between their boards. And so we have a meeting between principals, and we present this for a second time. But we've already started to phase this into the classrooms. Teachers are nervous. Some of them are nervous, and some of them are excited, depending on, the teacher. So we hopefully will provide the training for them.
Okay, so one more clarifying question. So basically, this is going to be in all of our classrooms, but for K through 8, this would only be used on those days when the children are remote.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will not be a substitute if children will still be, if children want total remote, they will need to be in the virtual academy.
Except for high school. And then
Except for high school.
Okay,
right.
Okay. I want to make sure we're clear on that for myself and also for our parents who I know would want to know that.
Okay.
All right.
All right, hang on again.
I think Ms. Burke has a question. I see Ms. Burke's hand.
I do have a question. I have a couple of questions. And the first question is, what about the teachers who want to remain virtual? Do we have options for them?
So we took a survey of those teachers. We took a survey back in July, and HR is working through each one of those surveys for employees, all employees who requested an alternate work assignment. I don't know if Dion has a report for us, so she wants to give it later. But everyone had a document that they signed, and unless they sign that document and we're working through it, they indicated they would come back. And also we have some teachers, we have almost 200 teachers in the virtual academy, many of who requested virtual. So Dion, do you want to address that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. There were a few hundred folks who responded saying that they wanted or requesting some sort of alternate work arrangement. And checking with HR, all of the individuals who submitted a request have been responded to and have been advised about either teleworking, some sort of alternate work arrangement, or being advised of their leave options. So everyone who submitted a request back from the survey period has been responded to.
Okay, Attorney Jenkins, what about, that was in July, what about any employee who may have some renewed concerns? Because this is September, will they have the opportunity to be surveyed again? Will we be able to get some data now that we're discussing going back?
So I'm not sure about a survey, but when we get to the point in the presentation today, I'm going to talk about a couple of the other options for employee support for employees who have concerns about transitioning. And one of those is obviously we want employees to go to their principal or the supervisor first and share whatever concerns that they have, and then coordinate with human resources as appropriate. But there are extended leave options that are available for employees through the end of the year, through December 31st. And, it's possible that there may be some medical accommodations that need to be made as well.
My last question, I wanted, Board Member Jones had questions about what this virtual and in-class would look like, and it was explained clearly. I'm not so sure I understand what the high school situation would look like. Can that be explained again to me? The question is about teachers who are responsible for teaching online and in person.
It would be same as the younger children. The only difference would be that they would teach in person and virtual. It's the same. It's no different. They just have access to the technology to teach children who are virtual. And that would be a selection of the child. So let's say that you are a mathematics teacher. Your children would have the option to come face-to-face or be virtual, and the technology would be afforded to you to do both at the same time.
Okay, so this would be synchronous learning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So would the teachers have double duty?
No, ma'am. They would not have double duty. This avoids double duty. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison.
Mm-hmm. So Kevin,
Ms.
we may not, I'm sorry.
I think Ms. Monsinger's got a question. Is that correct, Ms. Monsinger?
So, yes, thank you so much, Ms. Parker. So parents who want their children to stay associated with their current teachers, when we go to Plan B, if they wish to stay virtual, they will be required to transfer to the virtual academy. Is that correct?
So parents in K-8 who wanted to remain virtual have already been assigned to the academy. We made it very clear to parents that that would be the only option for continued virtual learning. Now, if a parent has since changed their mind, just like with the teachers, we will work with those parents to accommodate them as much as possible. But the virtual academy is available to them. If a high school student wants to remain virtual and stay associated with their teacher, that will be automatic based on the technology. They will not have to do anything except announce that they're going to be virtual so that we can take attendance.
So, yes, my confusion, I guess, about, for example, the number of teachers who will be uncomfortable going in person is I think that people stopped being concerned when we voted for Plan B. And my recollection,
It's all it takes.
Okay, Kevin, Mr. Sherrill, would you continue your presentation? Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Jones, for catching that. So, board members, you've seen this, but for the viewers at home, we'll start again. And I will say that the technology problem we had there had nothing to do with the classroom technologies, the way we had the feed going into cable 2. So I apologize for that. But as I was saying, we're adding 3 components to the classrooms, one of which is the sound integration with the existing microphones that are in our classrooms, and we're able to tie that microphone feed directly into the teacher's laptop, which is in a direct feed into either Microsoft Teams or Zoom, to carry that audio throughout the classroom. So no matter where the teacher moves in the classroom, the audio levels will stay the same for those remote viewers. The second item is the camera that I'm standing in front of now, which is on a tripod that allows the teacher to be in the front of the room or anywhere in the room for that matter. The tripod can be placed anywhere. It's on a 25-foot extension to where it can be moved throughout the classroom. So in this scenario that I'm teaching kids that are face-to-face, and that I'm also talking, and the kids at home are receiving the same image and the same audio that the students in the classroom are receiving. And then the third item is integrating a large display, such as this Promethean panel that I'll turn the camera around here to. So our classrooms, many of our classrooms have the new Promethean panels, such as this one that you see here. Other classrooms have large format TVs on the wall, and some classrooms have projectors and screens. No matter what that technology is, we can integrate the larger screen to give the teachers a view of those students at home. So in this scenario, where we're working in the classroom, just by looking off to my right, I'll be able to see all of my students that are online, either through Teams or Zoom online, and my students are in the classroom here. So this gives our teachers flexibility to teach both sides, is the way I call it, both sides. So in person and remote, to work with those students face-to-face and keep the students that are remote engaged in a synchronous environment in the classroom by utilizing the sound integration, the camera that can be moved throughout the classroom, and the large panel. Document cameras can be integrated as well. The teacher laptop can be another camera feed that you can toggle between inside the software. So we put this package together. We're putting it, as we mentioned during the question and answer section, we're putting this in every classroom going forward. We are working on K2 now based on our return plan. We're staying just ahead of those grade levels returning, with the intent to have it in all classrooms as those last groups come back. So I think it's a great opportunity to provide this equipment to support instruction and to give those teachers that flexibility. So Dr. Harrison, that's what I have. If there's any other questions, I'll be glad to take those.
Okay, if not, I'll go back to the presentation. Ms. Parker, if that's okay.
That'll be fine. I don't see anybody's hand up, so I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So let me go back to the presentation, and I hope this is, are you able to see it?
We can. It's in the smaller version right there. You go. That's perfect. Thank you.
So down here, the virtual versus face-to-face. So what does the safe reentry stage plan look like? We've been on many calls with superintendents and school districts across the state. And what we've heard, if we've heard nothing else, we've heard, you probably have heard in the media that Guilford has recommended a transition reopening. Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Wake, and some others have recommended a transition that is slow and carefully monitored. And part of that is because we want to be able to ensure that we manage our processes, because we seem to be becoming more and more aware that our existence as it is today may go a lot longer than this year. So we want to be sure that we develop processes that we can carry forward into the coming months. So we have and I'll go to the board meeting of October 1st, but we have nursing students, firefighting students, and EMT students. There's not a large number of students, but they do need hands-on, they need their hands-on and clinical components. 80% of their courses, from what I understand, is clinical, and Mr. Sherman has requested that they come back October 5th, and he would like to work with the teachers and the students as we did in the spring, to ensure they have proper PPE and they move forward at the same time. Looking forward, if you were to go to Plan B, if you were to move to Plan B, pre-K would come in October 12th. That would be the teachers. That's 2 weeks prior to the students, and the students will come as soon as October 26th. Now, we'd like to bring data back to you October 1st to make sure that things are still trending down. But should you approve a Plan B on October 1st, pre-K will come back October 12th. That will give two weeks for teachers to transition back in and work through the process of returning. And if they would like to request other options, that will also give us 2 weeks to work through those challenges. Grades K through 2, 6, and EC Self-Contained, EC OCS, ESL Academy students will return October 19th. That will give them 2 weeks ahead of students in order to return, and these students will return as soon as November 2nd. Grades 3, 4, and 5 will return. The teachers will return November 2nd. Students will return as November 16th. Grades 5 and 8, November 23rd will be the teacher return date, and students will begin returning on December 7th. High school students at this time, because we know that testing is still where they will be in January, will return the first day of the second semester. And the testing schedule would probably require face-to-face in January, and we would of course have to arrange for transportation. So that's why that is to be announced. So what would it look like? It would look like pre-K through 2 would attend school 4 days per week. Grades 3, 4, and 5 would start attending school 1 day per week, as would, and the students below would attend 4 days per week. So what does that look like? That looks like pre-K through 2nd grade, and our EC students would attend Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with a flex Wednesday. And we would have 2 days of deep cleaning that week. Wednesday, where teachers would actually and staff would work from home, and that would be Wednesday, and Saturday we would bring in staff to be sure we deep clean school and surfaces. This would mean that students would be in school pre-K through K through grades, and our self-contained special needs students and ESL students would be in school 4 days per week. Grades 3, 4, and 5 would be divided into cohorts. And the reason for the cohorts is to reduce the density in the school until we learn more about the virus and how we can manage our students. Cohort 1 would attend only on Monday. 2, of course, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Everybody again would have flex Wednesday, and students, and this, we feel this will put enough, this will put the number of students in a building that would be safe at this point. We would revisit the numbers as we go throughout the transition. Some principals have asked for their elementary students in 3, 4, and 5 to be running 2 cohorts, meaning they attend 2 days a week, but we're recommending 1 day per week until students transition in. We understand the technology and we understand transportation, and this is advice that has been given over and over to us from school districts that have already opened. It's a slow transition, and then having students go out. So I want to go back to the schedule. That means that that means that all of our elementary students, the 3, 4, and grade 5, would be in, and we would transition them in. So in elementary, K2 would come in, pre-K, not everybody has pre-K, K2, 3, 4, and then 5. So it's a slow transition. It gives us time for teachers to adjust, gives us time for staff to adjust. Middle school would attend 6, 7, and 8. Again, a transition by grade level. So what happens with grade levels? We have very large schools, a lot of instances, and they're made a little they're over capacity to some degree because of choice. So we have lots of students, for example, at Jefferson, we have lots of mobile units, Northwest. And so we've broken the schools up into 4 and 2 cohorts, meaning 2, and I'll explain that later. This manages the number of students on campus at one time. This, as you see, Clemens has 4, East Forsyth has 4, 7, and so forth and so on. So we took the largest schools with the Southeast, Meadowlark, Jefferson, and Clemens, and broke those into 4, because these are large numbers of students coming back at one time. We don't know how the traffic pattern is going to go. And so we had to really look at what happens, and also the space with social distancing, because we do know that there's a social distancing requirement in Plan B. Also did the same thing for grade 9. You have Atkins, East, Glenn, Mount Tabor, North because of construction, Parkland, Reagan, Reynolds, and West, all with students being placed in one of 4 cohorts: Kennedy, West Pratt, Walkertown, and Carver. We will take Jacket Academy out, 2 because they have smaller numbers of students. So what would the schedule look like for them? If I'm in a cohort 2, middle or high school, I would attend Monday and Tuesday. If I'm in a 2 cohort school where students are given opportunities, they would attend Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday. This middle day is pretty consistent with other school districts that have closed, that have reopened. Gives us time to, if there is a problem with Monday and Tuesday, gives us time to regroup for Thursday and Friday. Also gives teachers additional time for working with small groups. And they, of course, on these days will work from home or participate in training, because we would have the teams in school Saturday and Wednesday with cleaning. If it is a 4 cohort middle school or high school, we looked at 1 day per week. However, we looked at the schedule to find that students in high school and middle school, they only went 1 day per week, would not see all of their teachers. They would have to go A and B day to see all of their teachers. So we grouped them into cohorts of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so the first cohort would attend Monday and Tuesday, the second Thursday and Friday. The next week would be the 3rd, and the next week would be the 4th. That's the only way they would really see all of their teachers face to face over a period of time. And this would start as soon as they returned. So this would be their schedule with middle school or high school. Principals and staff will be responsible for assigning cohorts so they can keep families together or addresses together in this regard. And that would be students. So this would be the transition plan for teachers, giving teachers time to transition, giving us time to meet with teachers who would like different work assignments. It would also give us time to transition students in, and if students had second thoughts about virtual and they wanted to remain in virtual, it would give us more time to work them into a virtual platform. Staff would return 2 weeks prior to students, and this is just a recap, and we would ask the teachers, we would ask the principals to allow the teachers the first 2 days they are back to have the students engaged in independent remote learning. So the first 2 days back, they could work on their classrooms and getting things set up for the students. The office instructional staff would all return on the 12th, and these people are listed here. Central office will return on the 12th. A lot of central office are already back, but we do still have some teleworking, and because of density, the staff would work on an A-week, B-week schedule. Operations, of course, they've been working every day, and they would be in place every day. Employee support, I will turn it over to Attorney Jenkins at this time.
Good afternoon again. So when it comes to transitioning back to the workplace, and this is in line with some of the questions raised earlier in the presentation, we want to encourage teachers and other employees to address their concerns first with their principal or supervisor so that they can be kind of the first line of troubleshooting and trying to address the employee's concerns. And then, of course, if it's something that needs to involve human resources, then the principal and the employee would coordinate with human resources to try to find a resolution to that concern. We understand that employees may feel some anxiety and might need some additional support in transitioning back to the office. And so we wanted to remind employees that they have services available with the Employee Assistance Program, or EAP. And if they need or want more information about EAP, then they can get that information from Human Resources. Next slide, please. Earlier on, when we were while we're in Plan C, there's a bit more flexibility, so to speak, in accommodating requests for alternate work arrangements. Once the decision is made to transition employees back to the building, we will have to examine those requests from the standpoint of the ADA accommodation process. And so if an employee has a medical condition that would prevent them from returning to work for whatever reason, then they should reach out to Human Resources to see what options are available and to allow us to engage in that ADA accommodation review. Employees will be required to submit medical documentation, though, of that condition, and so we just want to make sure people are aware of that. But if they are a school or central office staff person, then they should reach out to Brenda Bourne, and if they're an operations staff employee, then they should reach out to Kim Pizzulo. Also, just as a reminder, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act did provide extended leave options for employees, and those leave options expired December 31st. And so, excuse me, under the Extended Paid Sick Leave Act, that allows employees up to 80 hours of paid sick leave. There are about 6 criteria for which an employee might qualify for this extended paid leave. Some of the criteria allow the full pay. Some allow the employee to be paid at 2/3 of their normal rate of pay. There also is, for eligible employees, extended FMLA options for an additional 12 weeks of leave. The first 2 weeks of that are unpaid, and the remaining time is paid at 2/3 of the employee's normal rate of pay. And so if an employee has a qualifying condition that arises between now and December, they should reach out to Human Resources for additional information about these extended leave options.
Okay. So when we take a look at
Dr. Harrison, I think we got a couple of people with hands up. Do you want to take them now on that part of the presentation? Or do
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think Board Member Crowley had a hand up.
Yes, this is Board Member Crowley. I don't want to discount the needs of the specialized programs like the EMT and the nursing and the firefighters, but I do believe our exceptional children families are struggling. And is there a way we could swap those so that our EC population is first in line on this safe return plan? I just have heard from so many parents, and the stress that these families are experiencing is enormous and real. And I just would like to see them put to the front of the line. Is that a possibility?
So the vote is October 1st, and we can certainly move that up. But right now we have the vote on October 1st, so we can look at the data more critically. And we wanted to give our teachers time to transition in. And if it's the first, it would only mean they had 4 days. And frankly, we don't have the PPE in yet. And so we felt like by October 19th, we would have all the PPE in and the plexiglass necessary to bring our special education students back safe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and I think Board Member Motzinger, did you have a question?
Yes, my concern, of course, is that even if half the students are in class on any given day, the teachers are being exposed to the full classroom over the course of a week. So we're limiting in some ways we're cutting back the exposure for students, but we're not addressing the exposure for staff at all.
The way we're setting up the classes, Ms. Monsinger, teachers will be required to wear a mask and students will as well. Everyone is socially distanced. And the plan is to structure it so when students exit, they will remain in cohorts. And when they exit this class, they'll still remain socially distanced. So that's what we've seen in other places.
And I have two other concerns. Second concern is we're talking about bringing everybody back to school right at the time flu season begins. And that concerns me very much. Do we have data from other districts who have opened up what happens to the numbers of COVID amongst like younger children or teachers?
We do not, but I'm sure that Jennifer could provide that for you. Okay,
because it seems to me that we are, again, just choosing to be part of the experiment and what happens.
Ms. Meisinger, this is Board Member Jones. I believe today when I was watching the governor's press conference that they shared that they had not seen any spikes with districts who had gone in person in different phases.
Right. No, I mean, my concern is just that none of the urban districts in our state have gone in person. And so we don't, that I have heard of other states when urban districts open up, that there often have been problems. That's my concern, is similar districts. Do we have research on that?
Okay. Board Member Burke, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Parker. First, I want to say thank you to Board Member Motsinger for asking that question about urban districts, the research, districts that are similarly situated to our own. So my question, I guess, is for Attorney Jenkins. When we talk about asking our employees to submit medical documentation, the first question is, do they have to reveal what that medical condition is?
So when we ask them to submit documentation, it really depends on what the condition is. Most of the time, I go into a ton of detail about, their condition. They do provide information, or they need to provide information as to how their medical condition prohibits them from returning to the building. And so, some providers go into more detail than others, but as long as there's enough information provided that shows how their condition impairs their ability to return to the building, or how their condition puts them at higher risk in returning to the building, then, that's usually enough for our analysis.
Okay, and is that a violation of HIPAA?
No. I mean, again, they don't have to reveal necessarily all the details about their condition. They just have to be able to show how it impairs their ability to return to work.
Okay, my next question. We're giving parents and students the option to work from home. And the only option that I'm hearing that we're giving our employees is the option of taking a leave. Will we give them the option to work from home as well?
If you vote on Plan C, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Without any proof of having a medical condition?
Ma'am, if you vote on Plan C, it is, you're basically saying they work from home. You vote on Plan B, going back to Plan B, moderate social distancing. Plan A is minimal. So if you vote on Plan C, they will work from home. Yes, ma'am.
So there's no choice for employees with Plan B other than to provide documentation that they have some underlying medical condition that will prevent them from being able to go back and be safe.
Not unless they've opted to work in the virtual academy.
Okay, we need to give our employees an option, just like we're giving our parents and our students, because at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what if our employees, some of them have decided that they just don't want to go back because they don't want to be exposed to COVID, period. And I don't think that this board has the right to make that decision that will affect anybody's personal health. That should be up to individuals. So I just want to make sure that I put that out there.
And the best plan would be C then.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So moving forward.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it? Okay. So next steps.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's all the questions now.
Okay, good. So we have the 17th, which is today. Reminder, we have Wednesday principal check-in meetings. That means we meet with principals every week. We were meeting with them quite frequently, more than that in the spring. But we will resume our weekly meetings. And October 1st, I'm asking for a special call board meeting. This is called, it gives us a couple of weeks to really look at the data, get closer to the opening plan. When we came together July 17th, we indicated, we voted on Plan C through the first quarter. And that was the vote. Move Plan C for the first quarter, which is coming to a close. And so October 1st will give us more data. We will invite Dr. Miller, Dr. O, and if there's some other people that you'd like us to invite to speak to the board, we will do that. I'm recommending we have virtual with public comment because it gives people more opportunity to participate. Meeting September 22nd is face-to-face, and there will be with social distance requirements, and it's only so many people based on phase 2.5 that we can have in the building. So September 22nd being a face-to-face, I would not add anything relative to opening on the September 22nd meeting. But October 1st, I'm recommending we do give the board, the community, an opportunity for public comment. And I've talked to Ms. Parker about, those options. And at that time, it would be a full board call meeting, and we would decide, I present to you the same information and respect your vote as a board relative to remaining in Plan C or moving to Plan B. So that concludes the presentation from our staff. And I'm sharing my screen at this time to see if there are any additional questions.
Dr. Harrison, I think Board Member Jones had a question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ms. Parker. So a couple of things. One was around the central office staff and the A-Day, B-Day. It would seem to me that in between central office and the education building that we would have space to try to bring folks back at one time and not have the weeks. I think if I were a teacher, a principal, someone in our school building, and I'm kind of being asked to come in there, and I know that central office is support to them, I think it would go a long way if we could get our central office staff all back into the building and not have the A-Day, B-Day kind of weeks. No, just my thought if I were them. And I think the other thing is that I want to be clear that I was excited today to hear Governor Cooper bring up the option for districts. And I know that you can't spin this thing around. That was just announced today. But I would like myself to see us. I might not. I don't know if I'm the only board member, but really trying to get K through 5 in that Plan A as soon as possible. And if we can't do it, I realize on these dates that's probably not gonna work real quick. But at least be able to take advantage of that transportation piece and some of that additional capacity in Plan A. And then because I think we need to have our kids back in the building. I agree with Board Member Crowley about trying to help our EC kids as soon as we can to get them in. And the other thing is I noticed on the timeline that we have some of our students, and it says as soon as November 2nd. I think that's on the timeline for some of our elementary students. And I would just suggest that if we're not, if that's the date and we can't do it any sooner, then maybe we just push it back after November the 3rd, because I'm assuming we will not be in the buildings on November 3rd because of the election, and maybe not bring them all in on one day and then, disrupt I think from our calendar, I think we're closed on that day, I believe.
Well, the November 2nd is for the teachers.
Oh, that's for the teachers, not for the students. Okay.
Well, okay, I see what you're saying. We can move that date. No, to Wednesday. Right. We can move that to Wednesday.
They would go today and then be out of the building. But I, again, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but I was the vote against all remote learning. I wanted us in Plan B back when we started. So the quicker we can get, I believe in Plan A and I think we can do it in a safe way. The rest of the world, I've been and wash my hands, and I think our teachers are smart, brilliant people, and our students will they're going to wash their hands, not touch their face, and wear their mask.
And so, if I might take a point of privilege, some of the technology folks are moving over to Whitaker Park, which will give us more space. And we have quite a few that have moved out of the central office to other locations. And what we've done, what Lauren is doing and continues to do, is because most of our central office are in cubicles. And so what she is trying to do is to be sure everyone has their ability to socially distance and work in a safe way. And so what each department is doing is looking at that capacity, and they're building the capacity for that particular work area. And if they can't, then they're moving, because we did set up offices at home for staff. And keep in mind that on those Flex Wednesdays, staff will be at home in the schoolhouse. So it's a little bit of give and take. And so everybody, it's not as though we just randomly say that. It depends on the capacity of the particular group. Some groups are very small and some are huge. So Kevin has helped us by relocating some places, and we just wanted you all to be aware that flexibility would be there only because of safety. And the ed building is an opportunity, you're correct. But what I do know is that there are 4 conference rooms over there, and most people don't mind working in conference rooms, but not, and then also our social workers are in the schools, so that has helped us a lot as well. So we're working toward that end.
Well, thank you for that additional information and explanation. One other thing is, I think if we it seems like we really don't have a matrix, I guess, that says if we get below 5% testing, whatever, and Ms. Monsinger probably would want to talk about that, but just so that if there is anxiety or clarification to when employees should expect for a shift back to buildings or shifts back to Plan A and that sort of thing, if as we go through this process to try to define what that would look like, so that people will know once we hit this mark, this is the next step that we will be going to, and maybe that will relieve some of that anxiety that evidently people or some people are feeling, and it would be clear that if the board voted on that, then there would be clear expectations for staff and for parents as they're trying to plan around because parents are there's absolutely no consistency with if you have 2 parents in the house and they both work outside of the home in jobs where they cannot work remote. This has been a big struggle for them, and I know that they have to plan accordingly. So thank you.
Let's see. I think Board Member Burke, did you have another question?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and then Board Member Crowley, I think you have one.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Parker. Okay, so I'm looking at Plan B for elementary, the grades pre-K through, and it says that attending school 4 days a week, and it looks like it's all children attending 4 days a week. So how do we get to the 50% capacity in those classrooms?
So it's not all children. For the elementary school children, we would have the pre-K through 2 attending 4 days per week.
And that's all of them, so 100%.
Yes, ma'am, because we have the class size reduction grant. Most of the classes will be smaller, and you can split those classes with your parapro in the younger grades and K in first grade. And as we visited some schools, they can get all of the kids in there, but they'll split these kids up. And then at the same time, you would have one group of grades, 4, 3, 4, and 5 in the building at the same time. And so each day you would have a quarter of your upper grades.
Yeah, I understood 3 through 5. It was the pre-K through 2nd. I know some of those are 18 children in a class. So I didn't know if that had to be at 50% capacity.
No, it's the actual school.
Just as long as you have the 6 feet apart and they're masked.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And some of our principals want to bring these kids back 2 days a week already, but we think it's better to do one until we really understand all the dynamics that are going to go into returning.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty.
I do not see any more hands at this time. I have a couple of questions. One, that the EC that's brought back will be all the self-contained classes, correct? Totally across the district, and that would that be at all levels?
All levels, yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All levels, and I would echo that sentiment that I think as soon as we can get those children back, I think we need to put that up as a priority because, those students, I think it's as frustrating for the teachers and the parents that I've heard from because those students have challenges that need to be addressed. So I would echo that. And also, I do think it would be helpful for us to have some criteria, some metrics that we say that these are some points where we will, maybe reconsider or do whatever now that we have in light of today's announcement from the governor that does free up some things. So I think that it would be helpful if we could come up with some kind of point that, when we get at 5 or whatever,
So Ms. Parker, just without interrupting, here's the chart that was presented by Bill, and it does provide some sort of guidance when we move back to remote learning, which is right in here. And that's 15, the 14-day summary, new cases per 10,000. But what we will do is ensure that we have 2 of our medical professionals talk about this. And so we do have some attempt at providing that guidance. And we will certainly have the medical professionals on to talk about how this works for us. So you're exactly right, okay?
I just think that's helpful for everybody. So thank you for that. And I think the medical professionals will gain some insight into that for us as well. So thank you. Board members, does anyone else have any additional? Ms. Motzinger raised her hand. Ms. Mott.
Just one other question, or perhaps something to think about. The community supports that have been out here in Plan C. As we move towards a Plan B, what happens to those supports? So delivery of food or CARES teams out?
They remain in place.
Well, so will there still be like buses having food delivery for those who, with Plan B, they would remain in place pretty much exactly as they are now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, anyone else have any questions? Dr. Hairston, does you or staff have anything else that you want to add, or any clarification that you have
Yes,
for us?
so what I'd like to hope is that we can come back on the 1st, but what I'd like to say is that whether it be as announced today by Governor Plan A, B, or C, none of us woke up one day and said we wanted to be addressing the pandemic, none of us. But this team of principals, our teachers, our students, and our parents work very, very hard. This past weekend, I can tell you the team were texting and emailing all weekend and meeting all weekend, trying to do the best. And as I always tell everybody, out of the hundreds of books we've all read, I don't think that there's a playbook for us to follow. All we can do is use our best judgment. So my email box is already full, and one way or the other. And I would just ask, as I asked our principals, to be patient and be kind. And if we can be patient and kind to one another as we work through this process, I think that we all will benefit, and certainly our children will benefit. So I would appreciate that and ask that on behalf of my staff. As you all process the information, we feel that we are prepared to go into Plan B, but the vote is up to the full board, and we will follow your guidance and your lead, and certainly do so with great pride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hairston, and I think that your words are very true. No one would have they didn't even write a movie about this or a book. And so we're all in a difficult place. And I think that we all know that we're not going to please everyone with any decision that we make. We can try to do the best that we can to make it a win-win for most folks during this time. And I think that we can hope to move forward toward that and work through things so that we can do the best to our ability to serve those in the schools, staff, and everyone. Ms. Burke, do you have a hand up?
Yes, I do, Board Member Parker. Thank you so much. I wanted to just kind of ask, while we're discussing the possibility of returning, I would like to know what that means or what it would look like for our alternative schools.
Dr. Hairston, do you want to come when you present again? Would you like to have a report on that?
Certainly. Most certainly, ma'am. Most certainly.
Okay, Board Member Burke, that can be included in the next presentation? Will that be good?
We don't have an answer tonight. Do we plan to return to the alternative schools?
Oh, we don't have an answer, ma'am. We'll certainly have an answer on the 1st.
I'm certain that our teachers at the alternative schools would like to know about their permanent job placement. So we can't make an announcement or say anything tonight. Have we closed Main Street?
The 18 students that were on at Main Street are on virtual, and those teachers were reassigned. I sent you all an email. The teachers who did not have students were reassigned to virtual, and then some of the teachers are there to work with the evening students. So we will have to look at where those students are, where they're progressing, see how many students that we have. We shouldn't have many students assigned to the alternative school beyond the 18 that were there. And so the 18 that were there are on virtual right now and actually doing pretty well. And so those teachers did not have students have been reassigned to virtual. And what we'll do before October 1st is look at each of the 18 and give you a report back.
Okay, I know historically, Main Street starts every year with the numbers low. And as we open up face to face, we know that those numbers grow. This is historically. So if we open school back up, we're going to have some kids who will have behaviors that rise to the level of Main Street placement. And I'm just asking, will we have an alternative school, and will those teachers be returning to their positions?
As I indicated, I have no answer for you right now, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to those folks who have tuned in on Cable 2, and to all the board members and staff who have been a part of this. Thank you very much. And this meeting is adjourned, and have a good evening.